if you don't know who Taylor Swift is. There you go. Okay, that's what we call a superstar. Now raise your hand if you don't know who Tommy Harden is. Everybody know who Tommy Harden is? No, so a couple people don't know who Tommy Harden is. Tommy's also in this slideshow, and there's a reason I ask you that. Tommy Harden. So Tommy Harden has kind of a fun bragging, right? He played drums for Reba McEntire. We all know who she is, right? For 15 years. He's recorded for Blake Shelton, Alan Jackson, and more people than I have enough slides to list. He's one of the top 5 Nashville session drummers. Okay? Tommy also has another interesting statistic about him. There is nothing he can't play. I don't care what the instrument is. If you hand it to Tommy and give him a few minutes, he'll have it worked out. He's just one of those kind of guys. He plays drums for a living, plays guitar in a band with his wife, sings his tuchus off, and writes songs and studied composition in university. So my question, how do you sustain such a heavy professional schedule? So Tommy's got 6 kids, running all the time, and he says, I work really hard because in the 90s, if you were a session drummer, that it worked in the upper echelon, meaning you can be a session drummer, hey, all I do is recording sessions, and that's one thing. If you're doing them for Alan Jackson, Reba McEntire, Casey Musgraves, that's another. So that's the upper echelon, those who have visibility, that if your name's on the back of their record, it actually matters. You could work a 10, 2, and a 6. So 10, 2, and 6 in Nashville means you get up and you do a session at 10 in the morning, you finish it up, you move on to the next recording session 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then you move down to the next one at 6 p.m. in the evening. You could do it 7 days a week, 6 days a week if you wanted to. A lot of guys would be on their second marriages because they just were never home. But in this day and time, the entire music industry is shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. Here's a guy that's getting paid a figure most of us won't see, who's telling you it's in a reconfiguration. It's upside down right now, and they're trying to figure it out. The cat has fallen from the ceiling and is trying to figure out which way to turn to get it to land on the ground. That's a weird analogy, he says. Well, we're about halfway down, and we don't know how we're going to land. This guy is one of the guys. Does that make sense? Tommy's one of the 5 guys in Nashville, and that's his take on the music industry. So that's a little different than the slide where I said, think like Paul Reed Smith and have dreams. This guy's a realist because he does it for a living. All right, Bernard Purdie. Anybody know who Bernard Purdie is? Yeah. All right. Very good. He's a legend. Bernard Purdie. Since we're hitting on young players, what business advice would you give that serves young musicians coming up in the field today? What do you think has really changed in how we do business as freelance artists, which everybody is, studio musicians, where you could strive to be, and performers, which you can perform. The question is, can you get paid to perform? So Bernard's answer, and this is an important piece of red ink. You must learn your craft first. Okay, I don't care what you want to do in the industry, but if you don't know it inside and out, then be a hobbyist. Go to concerts, love music, have a great time. But if you want to sustain a career in the industry, you have to be lethally good at whatever your main craft is. And it helps to have more than one. You must understand your craft. There's no limitation to what you can do when you really know your craft. That's a nice sentence. I don't care whether it's guitar, piano, bass, drums. It doesn't matter. You must learn how to make your instrument breathe. That's an interesting statement. Talk, sing, play, and perform before you can start getting into the business of the music itself. So we've got this interesting argument in the industry happening right now. We've got technology that's fixing a lot of things. And I was in at an event, and John Diodario happened to be there the other night, and we were talking, and I said, you know, it's interesting to me because when I grew up, you were a technician. You were long and deep. You were 6 hours a day guy. But nowadays, it's I play piano, I play guitar, I sing, I songwrite, I draw, I can market, I understand social media, so now we're going this way, right? And my statement to John was, when I grew up, technique was a hurdle that you had to make, you know, conviction of being able to get it done before you could advance. Nowadays, technique is an inconvenience for people. They're like, oh man, that's just inconvenient, I'm not doing that, and they find some kind of technical workaround. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Well, that's real hip, but that doesn't breathe. Notice what he says. To make your instrument breathe and talk. There's not a computer on the planet that can do that. So see, it's still a business of the arts. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So whether you use the technology or not, whether you decide to be old school or new school, that's pretty irrelevant. But if you don't know your craft and your industry, you're going to get crushed. So history, craft, industry. Big takeaways. Fair? Mm-hmm. All right. Bernard talks about the Dan.